Y'all, this is the New York Times opinion. This is the editorial board. They're different from the news desk, but this is an incredible article about the bombs that we've been blowing up in Venezuela. No president should have this kind of power. I know from other reading this morning that it's Stephen Miller that's not only running the DOJ and the DHS. The Secretary of State Marco Rubio is also reporting to Stephen Miller, and he's the one that's ordering the bombing of these boats. But listen to this. TikTok doesn't want me to do this article, apparently. Somewhere mingled in the foam and debris of the Caribbean Sea are the remains of at least 17 people who were killed this month by U.S. military forces on the orders of President Trump. They were aboard 3 speedboats that the Trump administration said were carrying drugs and smugglers from Venezuela. Perhaps they were, yet the administration has offered no evidence. They've produced no evidence of these claims, and even if the allegations are correct, blowing up the boats is a lawless exercise in the use of deadly force. On social media, Mr. Trump assured the public that the passengers were not only drug traffickers, but also narco-terrorists and members of the Tren de Aragua criminal gang, which he said was under the control of President Nicolas Maduro of Venezuela. Military force was justified as a form of self-defense, he said, because the cartels are threatening our national security, and his top aides have vowed to continue the strikes. The self-defense justification looks especially weak. They keep trying to take my green screen. Looks especially weak after the Times reported that the first of the 3 boats turned away from the United States before being destroyed. They were actually turning back. They were turning back, and we still blew them up and killed them. With these attacks, Mr. Trump has ordered the summary execution of people who are not at war with the United States in any traditional sense of the term, and who may not even have been committing the crime for which he accused them of. I'm going to keep doing this. It is a violation of legal due process that should alarm all Americans. It is even more extreme that his policy of sending migrants to a brutal prison in El Salvador based on questionable claims that they belonged to Tren de Aragua and without any chance to contest the government's claims. The United States, created in opposition to monarchy, should never become a country where the president can order an indefinite imprisonment or the unilateral killing of people merely because he has deemed them to be criminals. Let me say that again. The United States, created in opposition to monarchy. The whole point of the United States, when we created it, was to oppose the monarchy of the British Empire. Drug trafficking is a serious problem, with synthetic opioids such as fentanyl having killed more than 800,000 Americans in the 21st century. It would be certainly reasonable for the Trump administration to increase enforcement in waters around the United States, as it has at the border. But there are legal ways to do that stop far short of killing people based on suspicions, never publicly justified that their boats are carrying drugs. Until the past few weeks, the standard practice in these cases for the Coast Guard was to interdict the boats, seize the drugs, arrest the crew members, and prosecute them. Then they have a chance to defend themselves before possibly being convicted and subject to punishment. Federal law, first passed in 1949 and updated many times since, holds that only the Coast Guard and not the Navy, the Special Forces, or any other military branch has the right to conduct law enforcement operations on the high seas. The Navy often supports the Coast Guard in these efforts. The administration has offered a couple vague, unpersuasive justifications for its actions. For one thing, it is suggested that the Coast Guard law does not apply because Mr. Trump has declared certain drug cartels to be terrorist organizations. Under the War on Terrorism authorizations put in place after September 11th, the military can indeed act against people deemed to be terrorists, but only those associated with the 2001 attacks. The administration has also claimed that Mr. Maduro has directed Tren de Aragua to invade the United States, making the situation akin to war. Yet even intelligence agencies inside the government that Mr. Trump oversees have rejected that argument, that Mr. Maduro controls the Tren de Aragua in the first place. 2 Senate Democrats have introduced a resolution calling for the end to armed attacks that are not authorized by Congress, but Republican leaders thus far do not seem to be disturbed by the president's power grab. In fact, congressional Republicans are considering a draft bill circulated by the White House that would explicitly give Mr. Trump the power to wage war against any drug traffickers he considers terrorists. The one virtue of the draft is that its existence implicitly acknowledges that he lacks that authority now. Yeah. In the meantime, Mr. Trump and top administration officials are attempting to obfuscate the illegality of their actions with a crude and unworthy machismo. Instead of interdicting it on the president's orders, we blew it up, and it'll happen again, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said about one of the votes. This president is not a talker, he's a doer. Vice President J.D. Vance wrote that killing cartel members was the highest and best use of our military. And when one social media user told him that killing foreign civilians without due process was a war crime, Mr. Vance responded, "I don't give a shit what you call it." Well, the model for this conduct seems to be former President Rodrigo Duterte of the Philippines, whom Mr. Trump has praised for shooting drug dealers in the streets without benefit of arrest or trial. Mr. Duterte is now facing criminal trial before the International Criminal Court for crimes against humanity, accused of overseeing the killing of more than 6,000 people suspected of being drug dealers and users. Mr. Trump has also admired China and Singapore for swiftly executing drug traffickers. Brutal repression of drug dealing may be effective at reducing flow of drugs in some circumstances, but the same is true of many other potential policies that violate the law and basic morality. Free, law-based countries do not shoot or imprison people based on only the government accusation that they're breaking the law. The most successful strategies for reducing drug use involve a mix of law enforcement, prevention measures, and treatment programs. The Trump administration, however, has demonstrated little interest in reducing drug abuse. The White House has sought huge cuts to programs designed to bring down that demand, including widely praised addiction medicine and harm reduction efforts, as in cutting Medicaid, which will leave many users without access to effective treatment programs. It is doing so even though these programs helped produce a 26% decline in overdose deaths in the year 2024 from the year before. It makes no sense, people, if that's what you really cared about. Mr. Trump has always preferred incendiary and often ineffective displays of power to quiet, steady programs that actually work. His attacks at sea fit a disturbing pattern of using the military to address law enforcement problems. Just as he continues to send the National Guard into cities in a supposed effort to reduce street crime, he wants to achieve the illusion of dominance over drug smuggling, even if his actions make little difference, and even if he kills people, guilty or innocent, in the process. The price is a growing number of bodies of nameless foreign citizens who can never defend themselves. It is a moral stain. It is a moral stain on our nation. Yeah, it is.